Finance Minister telling India Inc. I know there's more than 48,000 people who pay or whose income is over 1 crore rupees. Disclose yourself or the taxman is going to come get you. But like we promised you, here's the Finance Minister using Google's Hangout to reach out to India. Chidambaram joined by a group of panelists including Anand Mahindra, Jahangir Aziz, Manish Chokani. The session being moderated by our very own Senthil Chengalvarayan. Take a look at how and what the Finance Minister had to say to a whole host of Indians who joined in on Google+.
I recall at Davos, a mutual friend, Lionel Barber of the Financial Times, mentioned to me that what was needed to be done by businessmen and the government was to put India back on the global agenda. We were simply not part of the conversation. And arguably the budget is such an opportunity to send these signals. But the critics have said that this was a non-event. Now you could answer that in two ways and say that, well, a non-event, no-nonsense budget was exactly what was required and has a longer-term effect. Or you could say there was in fact a big bang concealed inside your budget, we just weren't reading the signals correctly. Which answer would you give, or is there a third answer altogether?
There's no big bang anywhere in the world. We can't invent a big bang. What we're trying to do is stabilize our economy, like many other countries are stabilizing their economies, and get the growth engine started. And as I said in the budget speech, if we grow at 6% and above next year, 2013-14, we'll be the second fastest growing economy in the world.
All of us businessmen want to invest. That's how you make money. That's how you earn a living. We want to believe. And we're in this classical situation of waiting for some kind of trigger to believe again. Perhaps I could ask that even when we talk, for example, about disinvestment, it was mentioned in pure math terms about what your target was, about 40,000 crores. But maybe could there have been more theatre about how you would go about doing it? Could there have been little more articulation about going out and perhaps evangelizing retail investors who would, and restarting, for example, an equity cult again? A little more about that process might have helped, but you restrained yourselves. And in all areas you gave targets that moved back from that element of theatre that might have created that trigger for us.
You see, in 2012-13, after I took over, every single disinvestment has been a success. Every single one. I started with about 2,000 or 3,000 crore, and we'll end the year with 24,000 crore. For the next year, I have lined up the list of companies which will be disinvested in. I know exactly which company, what amount. We have even a sequence laid out. So we will raise 40,000 crore. It's work in progress. It's a workman-like division of the Ministry of Finance. There is no occasion to make a theatre out of that, because this is simply disinvesting one after another. The first disinvestments will start in April. In fact, we have 3 coming up in March for this year, and the first disinvestments will start in April. So I hope to collect my 40,000 crore. I didn't think that merited theatre in the budget speech. But if you want to know, or we can always find another occasion where we can get all these companies on stage and have a little theatre there. But I think we will raise 40,000 crore.
I will advocate that, sir. You are a poet, you quoted some poetry, so you have a very strong right brain in you. I would look forward to that little bit of theatre. I think it might put us over the tipping point and we start investing.
And if I may add, we've got another 14,000 crore lined up where we will sell the residual stake of government and non-government companies. Suti has 3 companies. There are a couple of other companies. The residual stake of government means very little. We don't have control, we don't have a stake in the management, we don't wish to have control. That stake is there for many years. So some of that will be disinvested too, or sold, the right word, and we will expect to raise 14,000 crore. And if I raise 54,000 crore in one financial year, that's a success by any standard.
Unless you get industry to invest, and Anand alluded to the process issues which people face, and maybe that's why India's ranking as a place to do business is so low. How do we get that ease of operation moving on the ground? And I was surprised we didn't create manufacturing enclaves or special economic zones to give a fillip to exports to solve this long-term crisis that we seem to have. 20 years after reform started, we are back with a 5% current account deficit, a 5% fiscal deficit. Indians are still buying gold, they're not buying equities. We're still, taxing cars on the base of their length or their height. Where did we go wrong as a country? And maybe we are looking for some answers to that. So that's really question one. And question two is really around the capital markets, again something Anand alluded to. How do we change behavior patterns of investors in this country? We can't clearly be, running on foreign inflows forever. Because, like you yourself said, different countries have different, mood swings. And that impacts capital flows in that particular week. And unless we can create a large domestic investor constituency by changing behavior, and I would suggest what stops us from saying the index companies in the Nifty or the BSE 30, there is no capital gains for domestic investors. Come back to markets, change your behavior, get away from gold. This is the place to make money. A flourish like that from a creative person like Mr. Chidambaram, I would think could have reignited animal spirits. And while the world may be gloomy, we can get market share in a world which is gloomy because their confidence is down. And, there are people like Anand who are going out indeed and winning market share across the world in automobiles. And can we find 2, 3, 4 industries that we can back and really operate as India Inc. behind them to go out and, in a sense, plant our flag in this world?
Okay, so
it's really reeling from lack of confidence.
You see, where did we go wrong? We have not gone wrong anywhere. The world economy since 2008 has been in deep trouble. And since we are part of the world economy, we're affected. We did pretty well in 2008 to stem the slide. We may have, in fact, overdone it by the second and third stimulus packages, which pushed up inflation, which pushed up the fiscal deficit, but brought us some growth. But that's behind us now. In the last 8 years, in 6 years, we have grown at over 8%. Which other country can make that claim except China? So we have not gone so very wrong that we have to wear sackcloth and ashes. What has happened is, in the current year, growth has slipped to 5%. But that doesn't mean we can't get on to 6% and 7%, one rung at a time. And I'm confident we'll get to 6% next year and 7% the year after. Our potential is 8%. We are aiming at 9%. There are special economic zones. They've been there for nearly 10 years now. There are the new manufacturing zones, which the Commerce and Industry Minister announced a couple of years ago. There are 4 new zones for chemicals and petrochemical industry. Simply announcing them doesn't mean the zones will come in place. The zones are there. We have to ensure that people come and set up factories and begin to manufacture. My job is to ensure that people get in and manufacture, invest in manufacturing, which is why we gave that investment allowance. It's an old idea, but that had been put on the shelf for many years. We took that idea, dusted it, and said, all right, since things have come to such a pass, we will reintroduce the investment allowance. Now, people are sitting on piles of cash. Anand didn't answer that question. The public sector is sitting on piles of cash. The private sector is sitting on piles of cash. I had meetings with the public sector executives in December and January and told them if they don't achieve their capex targets, I will tell them to pay me special dividend. Now, for the next year's capex, we have just sent out the letter. Each PSU is required to fill out that pro forma and tell us what their capex targets are for next year. We're going to monitor it very closely, beginning from April. Every quarter, I will monitor what they're investing. And if they don't invest, we're going to ask them, why are you not investing? We're going to hold the CMD to account. So we are going to closely follow the manufacturing sector, both in the private sector and the public sector. I'm going to meet with individual business houses to ask them what their capex plans are. So I think they're doing everything possible to restart manufacturing, to restart the growth engine. Now the second suggestion that he made, well, that's a very, if I may say, narrow partisan interest. Why should capital gains not be taxed? It's another form of income. If salaries can be taxed, if professions can be taxed, earnings from professions can be taxed. In fact, even some kinds of agricultural income are indirectly taxed by clubbing it with your non-agricultural income. Why shouldn't capital gains be taxed? What is so sacred about those who make money in the capital market that their income should not be taxed? Therefore, I don't think there is a case to say capital gains should not be taxed at all. And not taxing capital gains is the way to revive the animal spirits. I'm afraid that's a very incorrect approach.
Well, excerpts of the conversation that P. Chidambaram, the finance minister, had with Anand Mahindra, Jahangir Aziz, Manish Chokhani and a bunch of homemakers and students, the first ever Google Plus hangout that the finance minister conducted post the budget. The man who moderated that entire exercise, Senthil Chengalviran, joins us now. Senthil, it was a show of strength as far as the finance minister was concerned. There was no hint of apology when Anand Mahindra asked him about could he have done more with the budget and should there have been more big bang measures, very clearly saying that, hey, no one in the world is doing big bang stuff. This is a time for consolidation. It's a time for stability. And on that issue of capital gains, categorically stating, why shouldn't we tax capital gains?
Completely right, Shireen. And what also struck me was the candor with which those questions were asked. You would have normally expected people who depend on government to pussyfoot around them. They didn't. They went. The questions were pretty tough. The questions were pretty straight. So that also shows a kind of maturity and relationship between the FM and the others who sat there, whether it was with Anand or with Manish or with Jahangir. They were all tough questions. And as you said, he didn't pull any punches. But I think if you could ask me a big headline, I think this is a headline that's been coming through the day because he's been speaking in other industry fora, is that we should expect something big in the next weeks and months, whether it's from SEBI, whether it's from IRDA, whether it's from the Reserve Bank of India. And the other line that I thought he was, which I picked up with a bit of delight, is the CapEx. Either spend on capital or pay me dividends is what he's going to tell a PSU. That's positive. That's positive pressure on PSU. We normally say don't interfere, but I think this is a great piece of interference.
That's in fact Senthil Bini's message. In fact, in that interview to us as well, he very clearly said that use it or lose it. I'm going to take it back from you in dividends if you actually don't get the capex cycle moving. So very clear message there going into India Inc. to corporate India, both private and public sector, that let's get the investment cycle going. Hopefully, of course, all issues of clearances and so on and so forth will be expedited, but sending out that message to corporate India.
He certainly is, and I think the question that Anand asked is, he's twisting the question on its head, Mr. Chidambaram, by saying, why aren't you investing? But I think everybody knows why people aren't investing. They aren't investing because of clearances, they aren't investing because of signs of the economy not picking up, but he clearly is saying that all of that will happen. You will see some magic in the next few weeks and months, and I think the reaction you're seeing from the markets around, not so much the market, but from analysts and rating agencies, is that they believe in this man's credibility. So let's hope he meets that belief.
Absolutely, the bet is on P. Chidambaram, the man. But Senthil, before I let you go, the first ever Google Plus Hangout, it's in a sense, it's a coming of age of the Indian government, wouldn't you say?
Yes, Shri, it is. But don't forget, this is a government that's been very antagonistic to criticism on the web. So people have said it's against social media. But I think what it shows is it realizes the importance of social media. So that's why they've been so prickly about it. So now, thank God they've decided that, well, let's use social media. So I think that's a great change.
All right, that is a great change. Senthil Shanmugarayan, thank you very much for joining us. Senthil, as I said, was the moderator of the first ever Google